Hello everyone, and welcome to the oh, that's not it. Welcome to the stream, or this will be the YouTube video of the Antichess World Championships between PepsiNGaming and GrohochetGrom. The Unknown Guy Reborn has a stream that's about to go on right now, so if you hear someone else talking, it's him, and I'm more of the guest here, so he will be talking, I'll be talking. Hopefully, we're here to help, and we're here to discuss what's going on in the game, what we're expecting. So before we start, Tugger, what are you thinking of this match? Like, what are we expecting here?
Expecting quite a lot of E3, B6 games as both players love to come up with that opening.
Hmm.
We might see Pepsi play something like G3 on the second move, or something like C5, or not C5, E6,
Yeah.
and
Hmm.
then later C5. But
Both players big E3 B6 players, and probably after that we'll probably see some E3 C5. But other than that, they should keep it pretty consistent with their lines. They're both players that, especially GrohochetGrom, is a very likes to stick to their line. So it should be interesting to see how this stacks up when both players are very strong straight line players, and both of them are incredibly strong endgame players. So this should be fun to watch. Tugger, just let me know whenever your stream's on, so then you can do your thing.
it is on now, but it will start broadcasting in 2 minutes
Okay.
because of
Is
the
it
delay.
is it 2 minutes behind?
Oh, sorry, it's three. It's three. It's three.
3 minutes behind. Okay.
Autumn Wind got me to change it at the last time,
Okay.
or at the last second.
Okay.
So.
Sounds good.
So
So,
yeah, it'll start in
yeah.
180.
So the stream
But
is
other than
being.
that,
Yep. Just making sure it's recording. Yep. Everything's going good.
all right, we're all set to go.
Yep. 1 minute left. So yeah, probably a lot of E3 B6. Probably a lot of E3 C5. Maybe if we're lucky, we'll see one of them. If we're lucky, we might see GrohochetGrom play E6 as black. But they'll probably just stick to E3 the entire game is my assumption. But it should be a really good match. I honestly, if you were to tell me to choose someone, I don't know if I could. Hopefully it will be a very fun match to watch. And we're watching white every game, correct?
Yes, from White's perspective.
Okay, so that means I'll have to switch back and forth. Oh, it looks like they're in the match. Okay, here we go.
Are they?
Yep. So GroHotchet. Oh, I should probably flip the board. GroHotchetGrom with white piece the first time, and we do see E3 B6. Your stream rolling?
It's the classic layer day defense. Yes, my stream has now
Okay.
loaded, and so has the page.
Okay.
So
So we're looking here. E4 is probably it was for B4 in case the knight didn't move back.
I'm gonna say something like, I think White should keep their pawn there because it's powerful and it restricts Black's movement. So a
Hmm.
developing move, maybe something like D3, Knight H3, something like that. Nikki will probably play.
Okay, yeah, yeah. We are, yeah, and Black can't play something like F6 right now. That F6 you'll have to recapture with the knight or the pawn, and if you capture with the pawn, obviously the bishop's opened up now, and uh, maybe some chaos can be created with the queen, but the pawn's very, very strong there. Also, very nice pin on the king from the black king is pinned to the black bishop, or the bishop's pinned with the king in front. So
Yep. I think Black's goal in this position, right, just to create more space here. So
mhm.
now with G3, something like Knight H6 becomes available. There's also ideas where you can play F6 and then Knight recaptures because you have no pawn on
Mhm.
the E file, and that's exactly what Pepsi's going to play here.
Mhm.
Now that pin, or the pressure rather, on the Black King has been released, and options like King E6 and King C6 become viable.
Mhm. And King D1, just threatening G4 here. Um, it's sort of a simple threat, but uh, Black comes right down and plays Knight E4.
So I guess this is safe for Black, because, well, the white didn't have any intermediates anyway. The only piece that could really do anything was the knight, and the only squares it could reach were e2, f3, h3, and none of which attack black pieces. So completely fine for black to play. And again, because there's no e-pawn, something like e5 will become decent in the future.
And PepsiNGaming looks like he's right in the midst of his his studying goes immediately with queen to f7, and right now we have a huge time advantage on PepsiNGaming's side, which will hopefully become helpful to or assistant to him in the future.
I didn't put Leicester.org in my title. Oh, jeez, I gotta fix that. Oh, no, no. Stream info. I gotta do this before, wait, no, I can just go /title in the Twitch chat. /title. Oh no, I gotta redo this.
And he takes the h2 pawn. That's probably just to give the rook less squares to move to. Now the rook cannot move to back to h1, because if say this knight was taken right away and after king captures, then the rook always has a safe square to get out of the pin from the king. So now the rook won't have anywhere to go back to h1, and obviously this is putting a massive time disadvantage on GrohochetGrom. Down to 25 seconds. Rook to f1.
I mean, another good reason to take on h2 anyway. Again, despite being no intermediate, so white doesn't have anything else except for rook there. It's based on the king side for white's rook in case anyone ever tries to, or in case Pepsi ever needs space there.
And this looks like it's very, very strong for Pepsi if he just takes the rook. Yeah, because now we could possibly see something like rook to f1 opening up for, or rook f3 opening up for the bishop now to come down. Yeah, and then after g5, just moving the king away from this pawn. With a minute 35, PepsiNGaming should probably take this one, but it's definitely not over yet.
What's black's best move here? Obviously, you can't sack the king, and as a result, black doesn't have any moves. So maybe something like knight f5, or sorry, bishop f5.
Yeah, I was just checking
it doesn't
that.
quit.
Although it does actually look really good for black, I don't know if there's a continuation here. Giving the knight away, probably a solid move.
Where else would you put the bishop then, in order to avoid it sweeping?
Yeah. So this is actually starting to look better for GrohochetGrom. Just all of the control that he now has. PepsiNGaming is very limited in his moves.
Program Fox is telling me that I need to turn your volume way up, so that's what I'll be doing.
Okay. And now with
okay, I'm finally putting Leicester.org in the title. So.
And with all the black pieces sort of clumped in the corner, it will make it very hard for PepsiNGaming to develop now. This pawn's sort of just sitting on the side. So yeah, with the knight's control, both knights are controlling the center incredibly well. And this pawn, even if it's given up, it's not that big of a deal. This bishop sort of cuts down the middle. And now the other thing about having the bishop on h8 is now the rook might be pinned to it eventually.
Yep, all white needs to do here is just take advantage of space. So bringing the king in, and then maybe rook to f2 because the knight guards. Could be an idea. You just want to make sure that black runs out of moves here.
And now with the c4 pawn, now the c4 pawn can advance for GrohochetGrom. And if the pawn is pushed far enough, it will put enough pressure on the knight.
White has an idea. I guess white needs to somehow salvage this position. So I guess knight d4 looks like an only move here.
Yeah, knight d4 definitely.
So
Yeah,
yeah, and then
but
maybe
only
black.
8 seconds
Oh,
left. Yeah, it was down
king
to 2 or
e3
3
doesn't
seconds.
work.
And now we really see the problem of the king being, sorry, the rook being pinned to the king.
Yeah, it can't quite move here, but it does have C. Katask was asking if c6 a5 worked, which doesn't exactly because the king still hangs. And then you've got the intermediate, well, you've got a free move, so you can either play something like rook f1 or rook g1 to try and get the knight in. So now white's just winning here. Yeah, like I said, rook f1,
Yep.
in, knight sacks, king f3.
Yep, and the first game
That's
goes
that.
to GrohochetGrom. View rematch. And now PepsiNGaming has the white pieces.
And as expected, e3, b6.
Yep, and queen h5. Probably looking at c5 here.
c5 is an interesting line. It just makes it so that the bishop can sack on a6, and the knight doesn't have to take on b4 if it doesn't want to, because it like the pawn can safely take on b4, and there's no threat of anything really.
And going back to move 2, bishop b7 is the main line, so this looks like it builds right into their preparations. Yeah.
Heavily theoretical for both, so should be interesting. Okay, I cannot edit my title on either like Twitch or OBS, so something's up. But
It's fine. It's
fine. Here, you can't. Rook h6 might be an appealing move, but there's nothing for white to really follow up with here. Same with rook to h5. The rook should probably be taken on h5, just that both pieces are there and it creates a weak pawn on the h file. However, white is kind of stuck with moves here. So something like d3 or knight e2 has to be played.
Yeah.
Because anything like e4 loses to f6, f5, e6. Something like f4 would lose to e5, and a more passive move like f3 allows f5. So you got to be careful on which quiet moves you play.
And right now, certainly, d3. I like d3 because before d3, with the pawn on d2, obviously the knight can't move anywhere. Your knight's super restricted, which in turn blocks your rook, and your bishop also has nowhere to go. So now at least with d3, although it does allow knight to f6, there is a little bit more freedom here on this side. However, also with knight f6, this creates the problem is there's probably going to be a pawn left on e4, and if there's a pawn on e4, then f5 and then e6, as you explained before, is something very tough to go for. So we see bishop to a3.
Because white still can't exactly like move pawns here, it's probably better to keep the knight on f6 and continue developing. Oh, okay, knight e4. I just don't. I'm not a huge fan of knight e4, even though it will be a good move later, just because it doubles pawns, right? But I don't know, it just feels off. I think it would have made more sense to like develop a little bit more. That way the mate is like kind of confirmed almost before something like this, in which you'll be just left with a weak knight and then king and 4 pawns.
Yeah,
So
I certainly do also like white better here. Just white will have a space advantage. White also has a large advantage in these major pieces. So this definitely does look very strong for white in this at this point in the game.
mhm. White just has to be careful of knight to b4 because that would exploit the fact that the rook can't move. And even if the knight tries to defend with knight c3, knight takes, and then b5 has immense pressure. b4 doesn't work because the pawns can sack. And if the knight tries to block with knight a3, same thing, b4, or sorry, b5, knight takes, and it's over.
Hmm.
So knight d2 or possibly e7 looks like an only move, but I'd say knight d2 would be better
Yep.
because not moving the pawn maintains the pressure.
Hmm.
Here we have that similar idea where the rook is trying, or this pawn is trying to create a weakness on the queen side.
So yeah, knight e2 is a must move. Now probably looking to um, uh, probably having the king in the game for black. As soon as the king's eliminated, this becomes a very like a much easier game for white. So white's probably just looking to continue improving the position bit by bit and hopefully eventually getting a much more clear winning position.
Mm-hmm. This should be winning regardless of like what black promotes to. Bishop is easily covered by the knight on e4. King, the knight on e2 covers. Uh, Rook is everything.
Hmm.
And then knight, it's a little tricky, but knight to c5 should just be winning on the spot, which leaves a king move.
Hmm.
So you can't sack your king because then you'd be forced to promote on the next move. And you also can't get closer to the white pieces without giving up
Hmm.
a couple pawns. So I'd probably suggest something like king h7 or king h8.
Hmm.
Maybe a couple moves. Eh,
Hmm.
maybe not have pushing the black pawn so early would have been better.
Yeah.
That way you could get the king at the black pawn together down the board at the same time.
Yeah, I would agree because the other problem with having the pawn on h2 is you can't promote immediately, and if white just continues improving the position bit by bit, then eventually maybe even knight g1 becomes a promotion. But maybe king is safe here. It looks like he's calculated it fairly well.
Uh, is there a mate is the question. After So the knight does have to move because it defends the pawn on f3.
Hmm.
The intermediates rook a5 and rook a8 don't work because the king can just move again. So maybe something like knight c3 might be my choice.
Hmm.
Although maybe just knights away from the king. That way the king does not have to force itself to sack. So maybe knight c5 would be better. Oh, knight d2. Oh yeah.
And rook
Oh,
promotion.
I didn't see king promotion. Or rook promotion, sorry. The reason why
Wow.
rook promotion works here is that it attacks the king straight up. The other king can't get to the other, like it can't reach that board in time. So it'll be forced to sacrifice itself on the next move.
Hmm.
Actually, no, it doesn't have to. It can
And
just come to c5 and then hide on c6 for the rest of the game because white can't get closer without attacking this rook there.
hmm.
So
So yeah, it should be a drawn position. That was really impressive to see that rook promotion immediately though. That's
yeah,
incredibly well done. And we see another b6 game, Liardet defense, and we see the
this
c5
time,
move. Yeah, in
yeah,
a lot of the games we've
GrohochetGrom.
seen, a lot of these games with these players, we've seen a lot of b4 and then b4 and then d3. Um, yeah, and then after those takes, we'll rather see queen c7. And then the best move for here for white is most certainly knight to d2. I had to study this line against both these players when I played them both in my candidates matches, and I had to study these lines for both of them. And knight d2 is the initial move that's the strongest move, followed by bishop b2, because the queen then has to, after taking on c2, the queen has to take the bishop, otherwise the bishop will come down and take on g7, and the black bishop will have to recapture. So here, yeah, and we see bishop b2, and after rook to d1. White's position is solid, but White's also very much cramped into the king side of the board. So I'm guessing it's fairly even at this point in terms of material, in terms of position. However, there are exploits for both sides for sure.
And Shayaxu did confirm in chat, knight c5 was mate in 7. So our ideas were correct. Is there a theory for this move here, or is it just?
So generally, if we went back a couple moves, generally the idea is after rook to d1, we generally see queen takes on d2 first. But in this position, after I'm looking at it now, e4 could become a possibility in the future, and along with g4. Obviously, with g4, you can't play h5 immediately, because the bishop can become pressured with a white pawn on h5.
Mm-hmm. I'd say for GrohochetGrom here, in order to gain space, you need to push central pawns, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if black wants to do that, he either needs to make it so that the bishops are cramped, which he's already done here, and ensure that nothing is a loose cannon. So here, White's plan is to go knight g1, knight h, maybe knight f3 here, because the king could defend both, and then gaining space for the rook to go over to the g file, and then you can push e4.
After taking twice with the f-pawn, this is normally very, very strong, especially if black has a knight on g8. But at this point, one thing that it does create a weakness for white in is now if the d3 pawn ever comes under attack, the rook has even less squares to move to. Before, the rook had both e1 and f1 to hide behind, but now with the knight covering the g1 square and the e pawn gone and only an f pawn near the black side, a move like bishop to a3 that attacks his pawn could become deadly.
Bishop a6 loses to rook b1.
An incredible intermediate move there.
With its intermediate rook b1, bishop takes f1.
Yeah.
Oh, maybe not.
Mm-hmm.
Oh wait, the bishop was defending the rook. I didn't see that. This still should be heavily winning for white though, because now the queen side is cramped further. Mm-hmm. So maybe there was a better intermediate instead of rook b1.
Mm-hmm. I was thinking if we go back to that position, I was thinking maybe something like a rook to e1 there. If you look at it for a second, because after rook to e1, then we have bishop takes on d3.
And then rook takes e8, bishop takes f5, king takes.
Yeah. So rook to e1 was certainly winning here, but obviously with the time pressure and everything on the line, then the moves become that much more difficult to see. So although GrohochetGrom missed that, still a fairly solid position.
After move 25 f6, black can't just sack the king and rook because white has bishop promotion. It may look like all promotions lose at first, but there's no way to give pawns like across all the way on the board with just a bishop. So here, black should probably play something like rook c6. Maybe he could go for maybe rook c5, which I guess would prevent rook. But now you can still safely promote to the rook because the pawn guards the b6 square. And even if the rook does sack on c8, black can't get rid of all of his pawns in time. Either you get rid of the b pawn and one tempo on the c pawn, or you march the c pawn down the board with one move left for the b pawn. So rook.
Yeah, so GrohochetGrom's probably looking at that right now. Oh, but one thing we could see with rook promotion is actually a knight to b8, and then after taking on b8, we could see rook to c5. So then after the rook captures on b3, that we could then have rook b5, and the rook would have to come back and capture, and then after that, a5, d5, and f5 and h5.
Alright, so rook doesn't work then. Actually, but you could prevent that then with knight g5, king f4, g3, and then promote to rook. Because then one of the pawns is out of
That's very true.
alignment.
Yep. We do see king
But
promotion.
instead, GrohochetGrom goes for the king promotion. It's a safer play. However, there is rook. Maybe he's trying to go for f4, king takes. Sorry, f5, king takes. E2.
We see once again GrohochetGrom in a lot of time pressure and PepsiNGaming with a lot of time on his clock. I don't know if this is because of their preparation or PepsiNGaming just feels much more comfortable with these middle games, but we do see game after game. This is game 3, and GrohochetGrom is up 1.5 to half a point. We do continuously see PepsiNGaming with a very large time advantage.
I think
Ooh,
black.
what if we see here we go d5 and then after king takes on f7, d4. Does that have anything that worked? I'm guessing
See,
it could lead to a draw, but
after d4, king takes. Sorry, d5, king takes. There's not much black can continue to get rid of his other pawns. So obviously the rook has to sacrifice itself because the kings cover both. But after that, you're left with a backwards pawn on a7 and a pawn on b7. And so it's either drawish or white speeds down the board to maybe a winning piece, maybe a king. I think d4 just looks like a draw.
Yeah, that's very true.
See, here d4, if black does decide to okay, well, white should probably just move his pieces together.
Yeah.
Just secure the draw. I don't think there's a way to win this against like if black is able to get 2 kings, then black probably will not lose unless there is a blunder. So
pushing the pawn
after
pressure
e3, knight f3 also looks decent, but I guess white wants to get rid of black's king. Point is being that even if the king does sack, the only continuation that black has is e2, knight takes, and it's knight and pawn versus king, knight, pawn, which is a draw. However, if white can swindle the knight, then they can promote to a king, and 2 kings, knight versus 1 king is a win for the pieces.
After giving away that knight, actually, there's no way to sort of force this pawn to promote to anything other than rook. So these pawns are becoming very, very strong. Black having more pieces in endgame will also be very, very beneficial to black if they decide to play it out, because it does look to be like it's going to be a fairly drawn endgame, but
bishop promotion. All right. I think black was just trying to go for space there. He wanted something faster than the king, but rook didn't work because of king g1, g6. So going for the bishop allows more space to be covered, but this just allows g8 equals bishop, which in the future anyway, after sacking the king, because then the bishops will have no way to take each other. Promoting to bishop now doesn't work because the bishop can sacrifice itself on the king. So draw an endgame.
Which does work in GrohochetGrom's favor. In case you guys didn't know, it's 12 total games to start, and if there is no winner after that, then they play 2 at a time. And so yeah, because that way each player can have a turn with both black and white. We see this opening a lot from PepsiNGaming when his opponent plays c5. He really likes the bishop c4 move.
Is the mage opening? Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, I think so. That does. Yeah, I think so.
This is the main line anyway. Point being that white wants to stop the queen race with queen g4 because queen takes a2 is defended, d2 is defended, and then queen g4 defends g2. So black either has to take the queen or no race. And so black decides no race, knight takes. White is just taking black's important pawns, and now he's left with the knight as a weakness. So after this move, he will likely be either forced to play b4 or knight g1. I would probably prefer knight g1.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because obviously threat being g5. Oh, or he goes for yeah, knight to f4. This could be uh there if there are any
My issue with knight
intermediates.
f4 is
Yeah,
takes
if there are any
bishop
I guess not.
b7.
But the problem with bishop b7, I think. Oh wait, no, bishop b7 should work fairly well. We could see though, takes on g6, and then after taking on b2, the knight will take on h8, and following that, we'll probably see a capture on c1 and f7, and then so yeah, it looks like what we're gonna see. And now black definitely.
Mm-hmm.
I guess it's possible to see because it's possible to see bishop
Takes a1.
takes a1. I don't know if it's completely losing, but it just I don't know. From my opinion, it looks pretty unnatural. Um, but
The thing is with takes h1, I think it's perfectly fine to play because after takes f7, king takes, the only way that white can sacrifice pieces is bishop b2 and knight a3. The reason why black can't sacrifice on the long diagonal is because the pawns cover. Even something like d4, bishop takes, pawn takes, pawn takes, you're left with one pawn, and then after knight c2, king d2, rook c1, you can't give all your pieces because then you're left with just pawns, and no promotion will be able to take care of all of them.
Yep.
So takes a1 could be worth a shot, but takes c1 looks way more natural, and under time pressure, it would probably be the move I would play.
And once again, for another game, PepsiNGaming with more time than he started with in GrohochetGrom to about 10 seconds, and he does go for takes on a1. So this could be fairly interesting. If d4 might be a possibility, because even after bishop takes, pawn takes, pawn takes, you don't even have to give away the bishop immediately to the knight on h6, because there's no really strong continuation after knight h6, king g7. It just looks like white gains more space that way.
White decides to go for c3. Point is, you're giving a weaker pawn for a strong knight. So we could see something like a5, maybe knight e2, maybe d1 if he wants the knight to get to c4 eventually. Yeah.
And Pepsi immediately going for e4 after na6. Just this is also could become a strong move, setting up for the double capture with the pawn moving to d4 and the knight on c3. If it ever comes up in the future, that will always be a threat. And GrohochetGrom closes that threat. However, there's could still be possibilities of setting up certain lines of captures.
I don't know what White's goal is in this position. Like, knight b5 I wouldn't say is bad, but it frees up one of the black pawns and forces you to take. So now you have 5 pawns versus black's 2, and black has 3 pieces and you have 2. So trading a piece for a pawn is generally a good idea. But now it's just
in this case, though,
4 pawns versus 2 pawns for a king.
Yeah.
It could be bad here.
And again with the immediate f6, just putting some pressure.
Black white can't go f6 because the rook is defending the pawn. F7. F7 is fine now.
Yeah.
But just black has to just be careful.
Mm-hmm.
So there aren't too many safe squares for the rook, and if the pawns advance too far, then you could be neglecting a threat. Even f8 is fine here, because after rook takes, the king can't go to a file where the pawn is, so
Mm-hmm.
or where the pawns are, rather. So here we have a2, black pawn threatening to promote. Bishop doesn't look half bad,
Mm-hmm.
but it depends on what white plays. Black plays c5, so threatening c6. If the king takes, then white has a free move. So something like rook f2 would attack the a-pawn. And after white takes, black takes, and then game over for black. Black sidesteps the threat. So here there are a couple good options for white. Fade is, yeah, there's the one I was going to say. White can't promote to rook again because of the king on a b1, sorry, and the file would be double protected on the top anyway. So
player in the chat, a very terrible player. That is that's the username. The reason we're so far behind is because there's a delay on the game.
yes.
Mm-hmm. And we see a bishop promotion.
Oh, my chat's working now.
Now this goes into a very we now have 68 spectators in the on Lichess, which is very impressive.
My chat went offline, like the stream fully stopped. I gotta go live again.
Just a completely crazy crazy position right here. Having two kings on the exact opposite end of the board. King sacrifice doesn't necessarily work here on the f file just because the rook can control that f file, and also the bishop cuts the king down the middle. We see another draw, so after one win we do see 3 draws in a row now. Anyways, now we see another game with b6. Yeah, and this time we go for the wing attack. Most likely, yep, and then we'll see knight capture. I'm just making sure the video's still going. Yep. And the theory behind this is h3, and then after bishop takes, rook takes, we should see queen takes f2, king takes f2, and then followed by h5. Here we go, and then after rook takes, we will see, yeah. Oh, we see knight takes. That's interesting.
Knight takes could be losing though, because
yeah.
after h5, there's king d7 and then king e6.
Nice. I was also looking at if queen takes f2, then we could have seen g5 knight takes and then moving the f pawn could have possibly worked because of the double capture on h7.
Yep, would have worked as well. What does black go for here?
Is your stream back up?
We'll be in 120 seconds.
Okay.
There we go. So we see d5 here. White can play e4, f3, but the king cannot be sacked because the bishop x-rays the g5 pawn. So maybe something gaining space like rook h7 would be fine. And then maybe a6. All looks good to me. Black has the space advantage here, so knight c2. Now the x-ray does work because after takes king d3 takes, bishop takes pawn, but then white takes knight. So stream will be up in 2, 1. There we go.
And black giving away a lot of the pieces again. We do see pawn captures, and in this case, it's both players have a lot of time.
I clicked off the.
This is both players have a lot of time this game. Black controlling most of the right side of the board, and white controlling pretty much all of the left, at least from white's perspective. Now with this pawn on c6, it sort of keeps the king. The king cannot move because of the rook is behind it. So.
Yeah, once the knight moves, maybe b3 or something, the king can move because then black would just have lone king and pawn versus a couple of strong pawns.
And we now see the push of the pawn again, getting closer to the promotion.
King promo does work because, again, the bishop's pinned.
That's true, yeah.
But king g6, protecting the rook.
Yeah.
I guess he's trying to guard against knight b6.
Oh,
okay,
that's
knight d6. That is a nice move.
That is a nice move because now it threatens giving away the knight to the king, and as soon as the king only has to move out of the way of the rook, which is then pinned to the c pawn.
Okay,
That's a very, very nice move by GrohochetGrom.
I think black's only move is. Oh, does black even have a move here?
Yeah, it gets a little bit tricky for sure.
Thank you for the 200 bits, Program Fox. I can't type in chat to thank him real time, but yeah, you'll see it. Yeah, chat only half works. I don't know. Like I can type in chat. I can't exactly share my OBS right now, but I could go like I could just say hi in chat, and I'm spamming, and it doesn't really work. I could say like thanks or something, press it. I can't send it. I can't open emotes. So I can't thank you real time.
After king e1, is this safe now? Yeah. Well, so he goes for king e1. The question is what does he promote to?
Well, if he could promote to a champion, he'd be fine. But champions don't exist in this version of Antichess, so that does not work.
Okay. So queen probably
goes
just trying
for queen.
to make things messy a little bit. That means PepsiNGaming probably knows that he's lost at this point. But maybe because the queen can control so many more squares, maybe there's a way for the black queen to sort of get in the way of certain ideas.
Well, the only thing that's being attacked right now, or being defended rather, is a5. So I'd say black can probably just play bishop f4, queen takes rook. Oh wait, no, because that defends the knight. Never mind. I was just trying to get rid of simplifying pieces, but a6 probably works, and black resigns.
So now, now GrohochetGrom is leading 3.5 to 1.5. If one of them does get to 6.5, then they will be declared the winner of the Antichess World Championship 20. I don't know if they call it 2020 or 2021. I know the bracket
It
leading
would
up
be
to this.
2020.
Yeah, the bracket leading up to this started in September, October-ish. And so after all those weeks of playing, this is what it really all comes down to.
Yeah, this one game. So if you don't know, the way it worked, it was a 50-player Swiss. The top 12 placements, including the runner-up and champion from last year, would be placed into depending on how many players were in, the bottom 8 would do a knockout round. So 5 would play 12, 6 would play 11, 7 would play 10, 8 would play 9. Winner moves on to candidates. And then from there, 2 groups of 4, and then finalists play.
Mm-hmm.
So.
And so we see this line again.
Mm-hmm. I see the Hydrate program, Fox. I wasn't going to do channel rewards for this stream, but I will refund you your points. I can't do it right now because Twitch is not working, and Royal's in chat too, so thanks for tuning in, guys. To all 50 viewers. Here we have bishop a3, with the point being that black doesn't have any intermediates and is just trying to gain space for the knight. Similar position to a couple games prior. But in the previous game, black played g6 instead of knight h6. So trying to shake it up. And then e5 was grabbing space, d4 was grabbing center. So.
And
f5 here, trying to pressure the knight.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yep. Probably f4, knight f3 here is fine. But white goes for knight d2, threatening to sack on e3, and then f3 recaptures, takes with knight.
Mm-hmm. Another just
white goes h5.
Very, very simple sort of nice move in the position I see is king e2. It just provides a lot more space for the rook, gives it a lot of options, and we do see f4 now. Maybe giving room for the knight to move to e2 or something of that fashion.
We see king f2 even. I don't know if king e2 or king f2 is better.
Oh, actually, yeah. King.
I don't think
I feel like king f2 would be better because now, yeah, it gives a square for the knight. At least I like king f2 better for that reason. Yeah.
White's now threatening knight d4, king e3 with a tempo on the knight. Because after f5, f6, there's no way you can stop mate. Takes on f6, d5 takes, b4 takes, rook moves out of the way, takes on a3 or a2, and then back to c3. So either forced to sack the knight. Or, sorry, black is. We have a5, putting pressure on the queen side.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know if it works or not because of b3, knight c2. Or knight c3, sorry.
Mm-hmm. And we do see that.
Here, I guess white is just trying to give away their a pawn and then force the king to move on to the g file. Here we have a6, or sorry, e6. We'll probably see king g7 or king g8. Oh, okay, king f7, making it so that the white pawn can't promote to a rook because of the f pawn. Although, could rook promotion work in theory? Because to rook, pawn promotion, here, h2, c, king moves out of the way. Okay.
We see a knight promotion.
Knights are always good if like you're trapped in, and sometimes the king would be too slow. So you can use the knight to maneuver around the pawns and sack. So here, knight sacks in 3, whereas king would have taken 1, 2, 3, 4. So just saving 1 tempo and making sure that black is behind.
Mm-hmm. And bishop promotion. This will allow a lot of space to be gained by black. In the case that the white pawn ever goes down promote, it also does cut off a rook promotion because the uh, bishop covers the a8 square.
Do you think we're going to see bishop d4 or bishop d5, bishop e4, or something else? Maybe.
The immediate problem I see with bishop d4 here um, is simply the fact like there's no huge actually after bishop d4 and the knight captures um, I'm pretty sure it actually led to forced mate because the b4 square was defended by both pawns.
Oh yeah, true. Oh, and as uh, JJ the Ultra Bullet Lover pulled out, Twitch is down for a lot of people, so like they can't. Oh, just talking to stream here, but like options. I don't know how Fox managed to redeem Hydrate though, but essentially what it does is it forces me to take a drink of water, and the more times you redeem it, I drink more exponentially. So um, you'll get your points back, and you can refund it next stream if you want. But Royal reminded Royal to grab a glass of water, so we got something out of it.
And one problem I definitely see for black right now is how all three pawns are spaced out. There's no way to connect them all with other pieces. The most you can get is connecting one of them, and it becomes a threat. White might be able to make a nice promotion in the future, quite possibly a rook
Rook from
promotion.
Yeah, I was gonna say the same thing about Rook, because this pawn would be trapped on
Hmm.
the A file.
Yep,
So, oh, Rook just
yep.
wins here.
And
Uh,
there we go. And PepsiNGaming wins that one.
his first match.
So now
So
it's
3.5, 2.5.
3.5, 2.5 for GrohochetGrom. We see once again b6. We'll see if he goes down for queen h5 once again.
B6 is thought to be the longest mate for black, so you could say it is the best move, and that's why it's deserving to be in this championship. Because B6 is probably, or according to Watkins' solution, B6 is probably a mate in 140, whereas something like, it's B5 that is the mate in 100, E6 mate in 110, and C5 mate in 120. So here we see mainline. Is it mainline or is it side?
I
Or
think
no, Queen
it's
G4 side.
at least fairly like these players have definitely had this position several times. Um,
Common but not main.
mhm.
So here black is threatening. Yeah.
They,
just
they played it
not
for
keeping
you.
up. Yeah, maybe. I'm not sure if knight e2 works because after takes on takes, there'd be bishop e7. So after taking on h7, takes on e4. I guess takes on h8, takes c2, and then takes knight, rook recaptures, knight recaptures. White has 2 knights and 3 pawns against black's king, 6 pawns, and rook. So could be a line if knight e2 is played. I think knight h3 though, if you want to avoid that, would be better. Yes, you double your pawns, but they're on the h file. Oh, knight f3. I guess the idea here is that you want to take with the knight on h2,
Mhm.
and if g5, you can sack the f pawn.
And the reason that works that time, and normally the reason why knight f3 is looked at strangely there, is normally rather the f2 pawn or the e4 pawn is also defended. So after knight f3, if the queen takes f2 and there is a piece there to recapture, then g5 becomes an idea, e5 becomes an idea, and several other things start coming together in that case. And the problem here again with g5 trying to pressure the knight is you'll have both f4 and g3, and then that will set up for a double capture on the knight. And then all you need to do is move the rook out of the way, and it should be fairly straightforward uh, for white.
here. I think white just needs to get their rook the h file. So I would probably play rook g1 and then reroute the knight over to d2, just applying more pressure on this c4 square. The rook can't exactly do too much damage because after rook b3 takes, a4 takes, everything just won't be connected enough. Like, yes, you can give the second a pawn and the bishop, but this c pawn then won't be taken, and your knight will be stuck on the king side. So rook f1 gets played, which is an odd move considering now you can't go f4 and the knight has no square.
The knight
But I
cannot
guess
retreat
g5
to
is an only move now.
Yeah, it certainly is, and especially with G1, unless we're missing something, then your knight has an escape for with knight F1, but now because your knight can't go back to F1, G4 becomes a very large threat.
What happens after G4? F5, E takes, F takes, bishop comes out. So losing for black to play F5. Knight E7 could happen first, and then rook E7, and then the move H5 becomes available, or F5.
There might be, maybe I'm just completely miscalculating, but
thanks for the follows. Sorry.
Yeah, no problem. E5 may or may not have been an option there. In that case, I'll go back and look at it afterwards, but E5 did look quite strong there. Oh, and we do see a win for PepsiNGaming, a very nice win over 3 minutes at the end there. That just shows how confident he was and how far away he saw that